The crystal palace of Orvan shone like a mountain of light under the twin suns. Its walls were tall and sharp, carved from a single block of clear stone that glimmered in the daylight. Inside the great hall, hundreds of alien nobles stood in a circle, their silver robes trailing over the polished floor. The air was filled with the scent of burning herbs, a smell the Tharn used in every ceremony. At the center of the hall, on a black throne made of iron and gold, sat King Dravos. His skin was the deep green of forest leaves, his 4 eyes fixed on the man who stood before him. The man was not a Tharn. He was human. His name was Tom. Tom wore no armor, only a dark travel coat and boots coated in dust from the journey. He was not tall compared to the Tharn, but he stood straight and steady, showing no fear under the weight of hundreds of alien eyes. The great hall was silent except for the soft hum of the crystal lights above. King Dravos spoke in a deep voice that seemed to shake the air. "You have completed all the trials, human. My warriors have failed to stop you. My hunters could not track you. Even my riddles, which no off-worlder has ever solved, could not defeat you," the nobles murmured, their voices low but sharp. To them, Tom was a strange creature from a small, unimportant planet. They had expected him to fall in the first trial, yet he had not only survived, he had won. Tom bowed his head slightly, not in weakness, but in respect. "Your trials were fair. Your people are strong. I learned much." The king's 4 eyes narrowed, studying the human. "Few stand before me after such victories. Fewer still do so without trembling. You have earned a reward. Name what you desire." A wave of whispers ran through the hall. The Tharn believed all humans loved wealth. Gold, jewels, ships, land, such things had bought the loyalty of many before. The king raised his hand, and servants stepped forward, carrying open chests filled with golden coins, gems the size of a man's fist, and small cubes of silver light, power cores worth a fortune on any world. "Take your pick," the king said. "Gold from the mines of Dreth, gems from the stars of Varn, power to fuel 100 ships. You will live in comfort for all your days." The servants knelt before Tom, holding the treasures up for him to see. The light from the gold and gems sparkled across the human's face. Any other man might have reached out at once, but Tom did not move. He looked at the treasures for only a moment, then lifted his gaze back to the throne. His voice was calm when he spoke. "I do not want gold. I do not want gems or power cores." The hall went silent. Many of the nobles leaned forward, confused. Some smiled, thinking this human must be a fool to refuse such riches. King Dravos tilted his head, his green brow furrowing. "Then what is it you seek?" the king asked. Tom took a breath. "I want your fiercest daughter." The silence deepened. A murmur grew into a wave of voices. Some nobles laughed in disbelief. Others hissed in anger, as if the human had spoken words that should never be heard in the king's hall. One tall noble shouted, "This is insult!" Another said, "He dares to speak of the daughter of storms as a prize!" The king did not shout. His voice remained steady, but a sharper edge entered his tone. "Do you even know of whom you speak?" "Yes," Tom replied. "I have heard of Zara, the one you call the daughter of storms. I have heard she is the finest warrior of your people. I came to Orvan for the trials, but my true goal was to stand before her." The nobles' protests grew louder. A few of the king's guard stepped forward, hands resting on the grips of their long spears. The king raised one hand, and at once the hall grew still again. King Dravos leaned forward on his throne. "Many have sought Zara's hand. Most were Tharn. All of them failed her tests. She is not a prize to be won with words, human. She chooses for herself." "I know," Tom said. "I do not seek to claim her as a prize. I wish to face her trials, and if she finds me worthy, then I will stand at her side. If not, I will leave Orvan without complaint." The king's eyes glimmered like green glass. He studied Tom for a long moment, then slowly sat back. "You are bold. Boldness can be strength, or it can be the path to ruin." He turned his head toward the great doors at the end of the hall and spoke a command in the Tharn tongue. The tall doors opened, and the sound of metal boots on stone echoed into the chamber. Through the doors came a figure in black battle armor. The armor was smooth and curved, marked with silver lines that glowed faintly. The figure moved with the grace of a predator. When she removed her helmet, long dark hair fell over her shoulders, and her sharp eyes swept across the hall before locking on Tom. This was Zara, the daughter of storms. Her gaze was cold, but there was a spark of interest in it. She walked to the center of the hall, stopping only a few steps from Tom. The nobles watched in silence. Even the king did not speak. Zara's voice was calm but carried power. "You are the human who defeated my father's trials." "Yes," Tom said. "You want me?" she said, not as a question, but as a statement. Tom met her eyes. "I want the chance to prove myself to you." A faint smile touched her lips, but it was not a warm smile. "Then you will face my trials, human. They will be harder than my father's. If you fail, you will be sent away. If you cheat, you will not leave this hall alive. Do you understand?" "I understand," Tom replied. The king spoke again, his deep voice filling the hall. "So be it. Zara, prepare your trials. Human, rest tonight. At dawn, your true test begins." The nobles began to whisper again as the king rose from his throne and left the hall. Zara stepped closer to Tom, her eyes still locked on his. "You asked for me," she said. "Tomorrow you will learn what that means." She turned and walked away, the sound of her armor ringing against the stone floor. Tom stood where he was, watching her go, knowing that the real challenge was yet to come. The morning light of Orvan's twin sons poured over the training grounds outside the Crystal Palace. The air smelled of steel and fresh dust, stirred by the wind sweeping in from the wild plains. Rows of alien warriors trained with long spears, moving in perfect unison, their armor flashing in the sunlight. Tom stood alone at the center of the grounds, his coat gone, replaced by simple leather armor the palace guards had given him. His boots sank slightly into the soft ground as he waited. He could feel dozens of eyes on him. Guards, nobles, and servants had gathered along the high walls to watch what would happen next. From the far end of the training field, the sound of heavy steps grew louder. Zara, the daughter of storms, walked toward him in her black battle armor. Her helmet hung at her side, revealing her sharp features and eyes that seemed to weigh and measure everything they looked at. She stopped a few paces away, the sunlight glinting off the silver lines on her armor. "You are ready?" she asked. "I am," Tom said. She studied him for a long moment, as if looking for the first sign of hesitation. When she found none, she gave a single nod. "My trials are not for show. They are not games like my father's. Challenges. You will face danger. If you cannot endure, you will fail." Tom's voice was steady. "Tell me the first trial." Zara's eyes narrowed slightly. "Survival. You will be taken to the wild plains beyond the city. For 3 days, you will live there with only a blade. No food, no water, no shelter. The plains are home to the Vorn, beasts with hides like stone and jaws strong enough to break metal. They hunt anything that moves." The watching nobles exchanged quiet words. Many had seen the plains. Few had dared to cross them on foot. Tom asked, "When do we begin?" "Now," Zara said. She turned and gave a signal to 2 guards. They brought forward a short blade with a black handle, and handed it to Tom. The metal was light, but sharp. Without another word, Zara led the way out of the training grounds, through the gates of the city, and toward the endless grasslands beyond. The city of Orvon faded behind them, its tall crystal towers growing smaller with each step. The wind grew stronger here, carrying the sound of distant calls, animal cries that rose and fell across the plains. The grass was tall and pale yellow, brushing against Tom's knees. After an hour of walking, Zara stopped at the top of a small hill. She looked over the land below, rolling grasslands, scattered black stones, and the faint movement of something large far in the distance. "This is where you will begin," she said. "I will return for you in 3 days. If you are alive, you will have passed the first trial." Tom adjusted the grip on his blade. "Will you be watching?" Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "I will know if you survive, and I will know if you hide. Remember, human, the Vorn are not the only danger here." With that, she turned and walked back toward the city. Tom watched her go until she vanished into the tall grass. Then he was alone. The first hours were calm. He moved through the grass quietly, keeping low when he saw movement in the distance. He found a stream and drank slowly, knowing the water could still hold danger. The sun was hot above, and the air was dry. Near sunset, the sound of heavy steps made him freeze. From the grass ahead, a Vorn appeared. Its body was as large as a ground transport, covered in dark plates that looked like slabs of rock. Its jaws opened, showing rows of sharp teeth. Tom knew he could not fight it directly. Instead, he moved to the side, keeping low, using the tall grass to hide his path. The beast's head swung toward the sound of his movement, but its heavy body made quick turns difficult. By the time it reached the place where Tom had been, he was already gone. The night brought new challenges. Strange insect-like creatures swarmed through the grass, drawn to heat. Tom made a small fire but covered it with stones to hide the light. He slept in short bursts, listening for the sound of larger predators. The second day tested his strength. The sun burned hotter and water was harder to find. His legs ached from walking through the uneven land. At midday, he saw a shadow pass over him. Looking up, he saw a winged shape, a predator that hunted from the air. He dropped into the grass and stayed still until it moved on. By the third day, Tom was tired, thirsty, and sore, but still alive. Near morning, he heard something moving behind him. Turning, he saw Zara standing on a small rise, her black armor gleaming in the light of dawn. "You live," she said. "I do," Tom replied. She looked him over, noting the dust on his armor and the cuts on his arms. "You avoided the Vorn. You found water. You kept yourself hidden from the sky hunters. Not bad." "Not bad is not enough, is it?" Tom asked. Her eyes held a spark of amusement. "Not yet, but you are still here, and that is more than most can say after 3 days on the plains." She turned toward the city. "Come, you have passed the first trial. Tomorrow, we will see if you can fly as well as you can walk." As they walked back toward the crystal towers of Orvon, Tom could feel the weight of the days in his muscles. Yet he also felt something else, the beginning of respect in Zara's voice. It was small, but it was there, and it was worth more to him than all the gold in the palace. The next morning, the twin suns rose over Orvon with a clear sky. The light washed over the crystal towers until they shone like blades of glass. Tom stood on the edge of the palace's sky dock, looking at the rows of sleek Tharn starfighters, lined up in a perfect row. The smell of heated metal and fuel filled the air. Zara was already there, standing beside a black and silver fighter. Her armor was the same color as the ship, and the wind tugged at her dark hair. She looked at Tom without speaking for a moment, as if measuring him again. "You passed the first trial," she said at last. "You can survive on the ground, Now we see if you can survive in the stars." Tom looked past her to the massive ring of rocks and ice visible in the sky, the Orvan asteroid belt. The ring stretched far across the horizon like a scar of silver and shadow. Zara walked toward her fighter. "The second trial is simple. We will race through the asteroid belt. First to reach the beacon tower on the far side wins. You will fly the training ship over there. If you crash, you fail. If you fall behind, you fail. If you survive but arrive second, you still fail." Tom followed her gaze to a smaller, older craft. Its paint was scratched, and its engines looked as if they had been rebuilt many times. "Not much of a ship," he said. "It will fly if you know how to fly it," Zara replied. "But the belt will not forgive mistakes. The asteroids move fast, and there are pockets of frozen gas that will blind your sensors. You will need more than speed to win." Tom climbed into the cockpit of the training ship. The controls were different from human designs, but he took a moment to study them. The glass canopy slid shut, sealing him inside. He could see Zara climbing into her own fighter. A voice came through his comm unit, the deep tone of a Tharn, flight master. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1, go!" Engines roared, and both ships lifted from the dock. The training ship was slower to respond, but Tom pushed it forward, feeling the vibration of its old systems. Zara's fighter shot ahead, its black shape cutting through the air like a blade. They left the sky behind and entered the edge of the asteroid belt. Enormous rocks tumbled through the void, some the size of small moons, others no larger than a cart. Ice glinted on their surfaces, catching the sunlight in bright flashes. Zara wove between the moving stones with perfect control. Her fighter twisted and rolled, never losing speed. Tom stayed behind her at first, watching her flight path. He did not try to match her exact moves. Instead, he searched for gaps in the field that were wider, safer, and allowed him to keep steady speed. Without sharp turns, a massive chunk of ice spun toward him. He banked hard to the left, feeling the hull shake as the rock passed within a few meters. Ahead, Zara dove into a narrow tunnel between two spinning asteroids. Tom chose a different path, slipping around the outer edge. He lost sight of her for a moment, but when the paths joined again, they were almost side by side. The race grew faster. Smaller rocks zipped past like bullets. Clouds of frozen gas drifted through the belt, turning the world into a white fog. Tom's sensors flickered, struggling to keep track of the moving shapes. He slowed slightly, relying on his eyes instead. In the fog, he caught sight of Zara's ship again. She was moving faster than before, but her path was tighter, riskier. An asteroid the size of a tower spun suddenly across her path. She swerved sharply, her ship grazing the rock with a burst of sparks. Tom saw his chance. While she recovered, he dove through a gap to the right, cutting the distance to the beacon tower. The tower itself came into view, a tall spire of metal anchored to a large asteroid, glowing with red light at its peak. Zara's voice came, over the comm. "You are better than I thought, human, but the race is not over." She surged forward, her fighter's engines blazing. Tom pushed his own ship to the limit. The old craft groaned under the strain, but he kept control. The two ships entered the final stretch, weaving between three massive asteroids that spun in different directions. Zara tried to slip between two rocks in a sharp move, but one shifted unexpectedly, forcing her to brake for a second. Tom took the outer curve, longer but clear. That single second made the difference. He reached the beacon tower first. The tower's sensors lit up as his ship crossed the finish point. A deep chime sounded in his cockpit. Zara arrived moments later, her fighter pulling up beside his. 4. A moment, neither spoke. Then her voice came through, calm but with a hint of respect. "You won. Few have done that. Your ship was slower, yet you made the right choices. You see the path, others do not." Tom smiled faintly. "Speed is nothing without control. They turned their ships back toward Orvon. The return flight was quieter, the belt now behind them. When they reached the palace dock, Zara stepped out of her fighter and walked to him. "The second trial is complete," she said. "You have skill in the air as well as on the ground, but the third trial will be the hardest. You will face me." Tom met her gaze. "In combat?" "Yes. Not to the death, but to the truth. I will see if you can match me when there is no wild beast or flying rock to challenge us. Only you and me." The watching crowd along the dock stirred with excitement. A duel with the Daughter of Storms was a rare sight. Zara turned away, her black armor catching the last light of the suns. "Rest, human," she said over her shoulder. "Tomorrow we see if you can stand against the storm itself." Before dawn, the palace alarms roared through the crystal towers of Orvon. A deep, repeating tone shook the walls and sent guards running through the corridors. Tom was already awake, dressed in his simple armor, when a young palace soldier burst into his room. "The Kern are here," the soldier said, his voice tight. "Their fleet is attacking the outer defenses." Tom followed him to the palace's main balcony. From there, he could see the black shapes of enemy warships cutting through the sky. They moved like blades across the light of the twin suns, their engines leaving dark trails. Flashes of fire burst where Tharn defense towers fired upward, and smaller ships darted between them in desperate dogfights. Zara was already there, standing at the edge of the balcony with her black armor fully sealed. Her helmet was under one arm, and her eyes were locked on the battle above. When she turned and saw Tom, she gave a short nod. "The Kern strike fast," she said. "They want to cripple the city before we can gather our fleets." "What do you need me to do?" Tom asked. She studied him for a moment. "There is a power relay station near the east wall. If the Kern take it, they can shut down half our defense grid." "My fighters will hold the skies. You will take a ground team and protect that station." "I do not know your soldiers," Tom said. "You do not need to know them," Zara replied. "They will follow if you lead well." Minutes later, Tom stood in the loading bay with 6 Tharn soldiers. Their armor was heavier than his, and their weapons were longer, but he could see the tension in their movements. He climbed into the lead seat of a ground transport and waved them aboard. The vehicle's engine roared, and they sped through the palace gates toward the east wall. The streets were chaos. Civilians ran for cover, and market stalls lay overturned. Overhead, the shadow of a Kern fighter passed close enough to rattle the transport. Tom kept his eyes forward, guiding the vehicle through the narrow streets until the relay station came into view. It was a tall, slender tower surrounded by a low wall of metal. Sparks shot from its sides where enemy fire had struck. As they approached, a group of Kern soldiers appeared from behind the wall. They wore dark red armor and moved with the precision of trained killers. The moment they saw the transport, they opened fire. Tom swerved the vehicle hard, bringing it to a stop behind a row of fallen stone pillars. "Out!" he ordered. The Tharn soldiers jumped down, weapons ready. Tom grabbed his own rifle, a short-barreled design he had taken from the palace armory. Bullets and plasma bolts cut through the air, smashing into the pillars and sending shards of stone flying. "2 of you, flank left," Tom shouted. "The rest, with me. We push forward in bursts. Do not all move at once." The soldiers obeyed, slipping from cover to cover. Tom led the charge, firing short, controlled bursts to keep the Kern pinned. The enemy fire slowed, and Tom gave a hand signal. The left flank surged around the wall, catching the Kern from the side. In seconds, the remaining enemy soldiers fell, their armor smoking from the hits. "Clear!" one of the Tharn called out. Tom climbed over the wall and checked the relay station's control panel. It was damaged, but still working. "Hold this position," he told the soldiers. "If they take it, the east wall is lost." The sound of engines made him look up. More Kern dropships were descending in the distance, black shapes against the bright sky. He tapped his comm unit. Zara, the station is secure for now, but they are bringing more. Her voice came back, steady even through the noise of battle. Good. Hold them there. I am on my way. Minutes later, a black fighter dropped low over the relay station, its engines howling. It landed just beyond the wall, and Zara leapt from the cockpit. She carried a long spear and a sidearm, her armor marked with fresh scratches from the aerial fight. Without a word, she joined the defense. When the next wave of Kern soldiers hit, they met not just Tharn gunfire, but the speed and precision of the Daughter of Storms. Zara moved like lightning, her spear cutting down enemies before they could fire. Tom fought beside her, covering her from a distance and calling out enemy positions. The Tharn soldiers moved with more confidence now, their earlier tension replaced, with sharp focus. The ground became a storm of noise and heat, but they did not give an inch. After what felt like hours, the last Kern soldier fell. Smoke drifted over the relay station, and the sky above began to clear as the enemy ships pulled back. Zara lowered her spear and looked at Tom. "You held the station," she said. "You held the sky," he replied. The soldiers began repairing the damage to the control panel. Zara stepped closer to Tom, her expression thoughtful. "Most who fight beside me try to match my speed or strength. You do not. You find where you are most needed and put yourself there. Winning is not always about being the strongest," Tom said. Her eyes met his for a long moment. "Perhaps you are beginning to understand my people. Or perhaps you are teaching me something new." Before he could answer, the palace comms crackled with the voice of King Dravos. "The Kern are retreating. Return to the palace. We must speak." Zara turned toward her fighter. "This battle is over, but the war is not. The Kern will be back, and next time they will strike harder." Tom looked at the damaged relay tower, then at the smoke still rising from the city beyond. "Then we need to be ready before they return." Zara gave a short nod. "We will be. And you, human, have just passed a trial I did not plan." They boarded their crafts and headed back toward the shining towers of Orvon, the wind carrying the smell of fire and victory. The twin suns of Orvon were setting when Tom and Zara returned to the palace. The sky was painted in shades of gold and red, but the beauty was dimmed by the smoke still rising from the city. The battle was over for now, yet the signs of it were everywhere. Broken towers, scorch marks along the walls, and the silent faces of those who had lost much. King Dravos met them in the throne hall. He wore his ceremonial armor, but Tom could see small dents where it had been struck in battle. The king's four eyes moved between Zara and Tom, his expression unreadable. "You fought well," Dravos said. "Both of you. The Kern came for our walls and left with nothing but their dead. For that, Orvon owes you." Tom gave a short nod. "The soldiers fought with courage. Without them, the relay station would have fallen." The king's gaze rested on him a moment longer, then shifted to Zara. "Daughter, see to the rebuilding of the East defenses. Human, you will join her. This war is not over, and I want my warriors prepared." The next days were filled with work. Zara and Tom moved through the city together, inspecting broken defense towers, speaking with engineers and training soldiers in both ground and air tactics. At first, the Tharn warriors were cold toward Tom. They still saw him as an outsider, one who had appeared suddenly in their city and challenged their traditions. But after hearing how he had held the relay station, some began to show quiet respect. They listened when he spoke about human battle strategies, ambush points, rotating guard shifts, and using the terrain instead of only relying on strength. One evening, as the suns dipped below the plains, Zara and Tom stood on the outer wall, watching the last light fade. The air was cooler here, and the faint hum of the rebuilt defense grid filled the silence. "You do not fight like us," Zara said at last. I am not one of you, Tom replied with a small smile. That is not what I mean, she said. You do not seek to prove yourself in every strike. You fight to protect. When the relay station was attacked, you did not rush to meet the enemy head-on. You moved your soldiers where they could do the most good, even if it meant you were not the one striking the final blow. Tom looked out at the plains, the tall grass swaying under the night wind. Strength is important, but strength without thought is just force, and force alone cannot win every battle. Zara studied him for a long moment. When I was a child, my father told me that the only way to lead was to be the strongest. I trained every day to make sure no one could defeat me. It made me feared, but it also made me alone. You are not alone now, Tom said quietly. Her eyes flicked to his, then away again. Perhaps not. But you are still in the middle of my trials. Do not think the war will take the place of them. I would not ask it to, Tom replied. The next morning, Zara called him to the training grounds. This time, there were no nobles watching, only a few guards at the far end. She handed him a wooden practice spear, the same length and weight as the one she carried. This is the third trial, she said. You face me. You cannot win by brute force. But if you can hold your ground against me for 10 minutes, you pass. They stood across from each other in the open field. Zara's stance was light, balanced, her eyes locked on his every move. The moment the signal was given, she attacked. Her strikes were fast and precise, each one aimed to break his guard. Tom blocked the first few, but was driven backward. He tried to counter, aiming low, but she spun away with ease and came at him from the side. Minutes passed, and Tom's arms ached from the effort. Zara was relentless, her speed almost inhuman, yet he noticed something, her rhythm. She had a pattern in her attacks, a certain way she stepped after each strike. On her next move, he shifted sideways instead of back, breaking the rhythm. For the first time, her eyes widened slightly as his spear came close to her side. She recovered, instantly, but he knew she had felt the change. The duel continued, Tom using every moment to adapt. By the time the 10th minute came, both of them were breathing hard. The signal horn sounded, and Zara stepped back, lowering her spear. You pass, she said simply. Tom straightened, his muscles aching, but his mind sharp. Not because I beat you, he said. No, Zara replied, because you did not let me break you. That evening, they stood again on the outer wall, watching the lights of the city. Zara's voice was quieter than before. I am beginning to see why you refused my father's gold. You do not measure value in coins or gems. I measure it in the people I can trust beside me, Tom said. She looked at him for a long moment, and for the first time since they met, her eyes held. No challenge, only thought. Perhaps you are worth more than I believed. The sound of distant horns rose from the city gates, pulling them both from the moment. Another messenger was coming. The Kern had not been defeated, only delayed, and soon they would test Orvan again. The air over Orvan was heavy with the sound of war drums. From the palace balcony, Tom could see the enemy army marching toward the crystal gates. The ground shook under the weight of their machines. Fires burned in the distance. The cities. Defenders were ready, but the danger was greater than ever before. Zara stood beside Tom, her black armor shining under the pale light of Orvan's twin suns. Her sword was strapped across her back, and her eyes were fixed on the horizon. She looked calm, but Tom knew she was measuring every movement of the enemy. The crystal gates are the last wall, she said. If they fall, the city will burn. Tom nodded. Then we hold them, no matter what comes. King Dravos entered the balcony, his heavy cloak trailing behind him. His 4 eyes studied the battlefield with a sharp gaze. Tom, Zara, he said, You will lead the vanguard. The enemy leader will not expect a strike from the front so soon. If you can break their advance before they reach the gates, we may still have a chance." Tom gripped the handle of his sword. "We will not fail!" The king's voice grew deep. "The fate of Orvan rests on your courage." When the signal was given, the army of Orvan surged forward. The defenders moved in tight ranks, their crystal shields locking together as arrows rained down from the enemy side. Tom charged at the front with Zara, their swords flashing in the morning light. The first clash came with a deafening roar. Steel struck steel, shields shattered, and the air filled with shouts and the clang of weapons. Tom cut down 2 enemy soldiers who tried to block his path. Beside him, Zara moved like a storm, her strikes fast and precise. But the enemy was strong and well prepared. Their war machines rolled forward, hurling burning projectiles at the walls. The ground shook as one of the machines fired, breaking a section of the outer wall. Tom shouted over the chaos. "We need to take those machines down or they will tear. The gates apart." Zara pointed toward a narrow path on the right side of the field. "Follow me, we can flank them." They moved quickly, cutting through smaller groups of enemy fighters until they reached the machines. The operators were focused on loading their weapons and did not see the attack coming. Tom leaped onto the nearest machine, striking down its crew. Zara destroyed the controls with a powerful slash of her sword. With 2 machines disabled, the Orvan defenders pushed forward, their battle cry filling the field. But the enemy leader, a tall figure in black armor, stepped forward from the back lines. His voice was cold and carried over the battlefield. "You fight well, human, but this city will still fall." Tom faced him, sword raised. "Not while I still stand." The duel began. The enemy leader's strikes were heavy and fast, forcing Tom to block and dodge. The clash of their blades sent sparks into the air. Tom's arms burned with the effort, but he refused to step back. Zara joined the fight, striking from the side. Together they pressed the enemy leader until he stumbled. Tom saw the opening and drove his sword forward, forcing the enemy to retreat. Seeing their leader wounded, the enemy soldiers began to falter. The Orvan army took the chance to push them back. Slowly, the tide of battle turned. By the time the suns began to set, the field was quiet again. The crystal gates still stood, scarred but unbroken. Fires burned in the distance, but the city was safe for now. Zara looked at Tom, her breathing heavy. "You fought like you belonged here." Tom gave a small smile. "I fight for what matters." King. Dravos arrived on horseback, his cloak torn from the battle. He looked at the 2 of them with pride. "Orvan stands because of you," he said. "But this fight has changed more than the course of the war. Tomorrow, I will give my final decision." Tom and Zara exchanged a glance. They both knew what the king's decision would mean, for them and for the future of Orvan. The battle at the Crystal Gates was over. The sky above Orvan was calm, the twin suns shining brightly once again. The city was scarred, but the enemy had been pushed back. The great towers of the palace still stood tall, shining with their crystal light. Inside the throne hall, King Dravos sat quietly on his iron and gold throne. His 4 eyes looked carefully at Tom. Around him, nobles and warriors waited in silence. Today was the day the king would decide the fate of the human who had dared to ask for his fiercest daughter. Tom stood straight and calm before the king. He did not wear armor or jewels. He wore only his simple leather coat, marked by dust and battle. The king's voice broke the silence. "You have fought bravely, human," he said. "You faced my trials, stood with my daughter in battle, and helped save Orvan. You did not come for gold or power. You came for a different prize." Tom bowed his head slightly. "I came for respect, and for a chance to stand beside someone who is strong and true." King Dravos looked toward Zara, who stood nearby in her black battle armor. Her eyes met Tom's with a quiet strength. She stepped forward. "My father offered you treasures," she said, "but you asked for me. You have proven your worth in many ways, in trials, in battle, and in loyalty. I choose you, not because of the challenge, but because I see your heart." The king's eyes glimmered. He smiled for the first time in many days. "So be it," he said. "Tom, from this day forward you shall be known as the protector of Orvan. You will share your life with Zara, not as a prize, but as a partner." Tom felt a warmth spread through him. It was more than honor. It was the beginning of something new. A bond forged not by gold or power, but by respect and courage. The nobles around the hall began to speak softly, some nodding in approval. The story of the human who asked for the daughter of storms instead of riches would be told for generations. Outside the palace, Zara and Tom stood side by side on the balcony. The twin suns dipped low, casting a golden glow over the city. "You asked for the fiercest daughter," Zara said with a smile. "You found more than you expected." Tom looked at her and nodded. "And I will stand with you through every trial to come." Together, they watched as Orvan's future stretched. Before them, and bright, uncertain, but full of promise,